magnet of threats was a server belonging to a research institution in Iran that simultaneously hosted implants for highly sophisticated threat actors: Regin, Equation Group, Turla, Itaduk, which was Russian language, Animal Farm, French language, Carreto, Spanish. So all these APTs were sitting on this one server. And in fact, Costin, that server was the starting point for the discovery of the Equation Group, correct?
Yeah, correct. One of my colleagues was looking for Turla infections. We were researching Turla back in 2013. And back then, Turla had this snake rootkit, which relied on a number of drivers to access a virtual file system to do all sorts of things. And on one of these infected machines, he found a bunch of drivers, which he thought it was Turla, some kind of a new Turla. And he sent those to me saying like, hey, here's some new Turla drivers for you to take a look. And I was like, huh. I load those drivers up in IDA Pro and look a bit, and these don't seem like Turla to me. These are something else, something different. And I think he made, first of all, he made the signature for those drivers, and then he found like a few hundred other infections around the world where pretty much everything was named the same way: perf nw.sys, if I remember correctly. That was the one of the drivers' name. But yeah, that story with the sour or dour magnum, it's another very interesting, because essentially it feels to me that the guys who wrote that report, they were also observing a magnet of threats for one reason or another, and then they see another APT group active in that infrastructure. And if I remember correctly, there's an IP address in there that you can actually use to identify the name of that university. Now, if you ask me if this Shahed people are the magnet of threats, I don't remember if it was exactly Shahid Beheshti. If you ask me, what I remember, I think, was a research institute. I can't tell you 100% it was a university because I don't remember. And again, the information regarding who they were was based exclusively on the IP description of that. So sometimes IPs, IP whois data is not quite reliable.
So we don't know for sure publicly. There's been no absolute documentation of who that magnet of threats, that server, who it actually belonged to.
As far as I remember, no. But I would assume they were a pretty important entity, considering they had Regin, Equation, Turla, Itaduke, Animal Farm, and Carreto on them. So there were like lots of different things, and some of them, I think, in my opinion, the best detail.
And research firms on there as well, doing research and seeing all this shit.
Well, the best thing, in my opinion, is that some of those were active at the same time. So like concomitantly, altogether, different APT groups active on the same machine, with all the risks, again.
What
with
a
all
solid,
the risks
resilient server. That doesn't go down, that doesn't crash, just stays alive while everyone is living there.
What solid implants, bro. I mean, like, fuck the server, right?
I think it teaches us a very important lesson, which is, as an APT operator, when you hit, let's say, some server and you see that on the same machine there's an antivirus and two other APT groups implants, so I think you should get the hell out of there as soon as possible, because this is essentially what everyone is looking for. And even like in modern citizen lab research, you see that they piggyback on the same concept, like an activist, and on their phone it's like three different implants. I don't know, it's like Pegasus and Citrox running at the same time, or maybe a couple of months apart, and maybe triangulation as well, and then two different Pegasus operators targeting the same phone. So this concept, I think it remains a classic in the world of APTs and APT research specific.
The thing about the magnet of threats, like whichever one it is, whichever organization, whichever university, it's all, what we're describing is more to do with like a dynamic about the organization itself, which is to say, there are things that are important to a lot of different people. Iran's nuclear ambitions, for example, or its development of certain technologies are important to monitor for a lot of different people. And I think everybody gets hung up on this notion of like Stuxnet, right? You go, Stuxnet is a step beyond that. We know there's an issue and we want to do something about it. Whereas with just sort of like monitoring these thresholds, you have so many organizations on Earth that have a vested interest in figuring out sort of what's going on at this place. So the magnet of threats, more than anything, it just reflects a dynamic about sort of these overlapping interests. And it's interesting to hear, as we discussed our Magnum, that in some cases they have known that they were cohabitating, and for the West, that's usually like a no go.